The chair recognizes the honourable
I'd like
member
to
for
withdraw
Marco City.
notices on behalf of the opposition.
Thank you, Honourable.
And I'd like to give notice of questions we'd like to have answered. But before doing so, I wanted to ask whether or not the government has designated the day to answer the questions that are already on the record. A commitment was made earlier. We've met multiple times since then with no firm commitment.
Will recognize the date, which will be the second Wednesday of the month, next month.
Again, would that then be the second Wednesday of this coming month? Sorry?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deputy, the questions are as follows. Will the Honourable Minister Bell provide this House with the date that the employer of the 65 Chinese cured the matters? Second question, will the Honourable Minister Bell advise the House on the dates and transportation method used for the Chinese worker in question to gain entry into the country? Will the Honourable Minister Bell state if the work permits for the individuals in question were made, the applications were made before their entry into the country? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise this Honourable House how long the individuals in question were in the country before being discovered by immigration officials? Have the three workers who had documentation been identified? Have they been fined for overstaying or deported? Will the Honourable Minister Bell provide the Honourable House with the average processing time for the average work permit application versus this particular employer? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise what the government is doing to ensure that another incident like this does not happen? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise the Honourable House if the individuals in question are still in country? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise if the 62 workers are in possession of their passports and documentation at this time? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise this Honourable House who was the individual who had the passports and identification for the 62 individuals, and under what circumstances were the passports and identification held, or are they still in possession of their passports and other documents? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise the House if this individual was investigated for human trafficking as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as the Ministry of Immigration highlights this as an act in violation of the Trafficking in Persons Act? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise who gave the directive if the then acting Prime Minister Cooper denies any involvement with this matter? Will the Honourable Minister Bell or the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, table the BIA or Bahamas Investment Authority agreement that incorporated these workers? Will the Honourable Minister Bell advise if the three identified workers are still in country, those who had their passports but had overstayed by 9 months? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise the Honorable House who is the developer that employed these individuals and the irregularities pertaining to this matter? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, advise if an application made to the Immigration Department requesting permission for the individuals to be admitted to land in the Bahamas? If an application was made, was it processed and approved? Was the application made pursuant? Will the applications be made available to the House of Assembly for verification? If no application was made, what then was the premise for these persons being landed in the Bahamas? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, give the reason for the apprehension of the individuals? Were the individuals arrested for entering the Bahamas in breach of the Immigration Act? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, advise if a comprehensive report provided to the Minister by the Immigration Director concerning this matter was made available to the Prime Minister as reported, and if so, what action was taken by the Prime Minister? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, give cogent reasons for superseding the decision of the Director? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, advise what is the ratio of non-nationals to Bahamians at the project, and does the number of non-nationals fall within the accepted ratio? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, advise if he gave direct or specific instructions to the Director of Immigration, and if so, was or were they in writing, and explain the reason for once again superseding the Director's decision? Does the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, accept that the Director is responsible for the administration of the department? Can the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, confirm that there's a number of matters before the Supreme Court and the Magistrate Court questioning the validity of citizenship issued by the Minister? Can the Minister, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, confirm whether the Director of Immigration has been sent on administrative leave or is scheduled to be transferred? Will the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, confirm whether he in any way affected the placing on leave of the Deputy Director of Immigration in January after actions executed at the British Colonial Hotel? Can the Honorable Minister Bell, and in his absence, the Prime Minister, say what the justification are for the Ministry placing on leave the Deputy Director of Immigration and then extending such leave multiple times, covering the period up to today? Will the Honorable Minister advise this Honorable House on the exact time frame Mr. Rancine applied for citizenship, saying he did so under the previous administration is not specific or sufficient? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise this Honorable House what was Mr. Rancine's immigration status prior to his application? Was he a work permit holder or permanent resident, with or without the right to work? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise the Honorable House on what date his application was advertised in the newspaper as is required by law? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise this Honorable House if both Mr. Rancine and his wife renounced their Haitian citizenship? When did they do so? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise the Honorable House, in light of his admittance that his actions were unorthodox, why he proceeded in the absence of senior immigration officials? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise this Honorable House when did the deceased person's application go before the Immigration Board and when was it approved? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise the Honorable House if the citizenship certificates were prepared in advance of the administration of the oath? Were they signed by the correct signatories and sealed with the correct immigration seal? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise this House if this was an isolated incident and if this was the only time this took place? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise the Honorable House if it is true that a similar unorthodox ceremony took place at a local government primary school a week before this funeral incident? Will the Honorable Minister Bell advise this Honorable House of how many other promises for citizenship was made by this minister and how many of them does he intend to keep? Will the Honorable Prime Minister advise the Honorable House if the Prime Minister and the Cabinet did not approve, then when will he ask for Minister Bell's resignation or when will he fire him? Final question. Does the Honorable Prime Minister agree with the press release issued by the Ministry of Immigration and Labor on Wednesday, the 26th of July, 2023, in response to the Leader of His Majesty opposition in its entirety? And if not, can he specify where the views differ?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Adjournment. Order that the documents be brought up.
You laugh, but you should really answer the questions.